The scent is the first thing you notice. A sterile mixture of ozone from the air conditioning and the faint, almost imperceptible perfume of 1,000 strangers who have occupied the same seat before you. You are on a train, or a bus, or perhaps in a car stuck in the relentless pulsing artery of morning traffic. It doesn't really matter which. The experience is universal, a state of suspended animation between a place you just left and a place you are compelled to go. Your head is leaned against the cool glass of the window, and the world outside is a meaningless blur of concrete, steel, and muted colors, a life lived in grayscale. You glance down at your hands, resting in your lap. They look familiar, of course, the shape of the knuckles, the small scar on your thumb from a childhood accident. But for a terrifying, fleeting moment, they seem alien. Whose hands are these? Are they the hands of a painter, a lover, a revolutionary? Or have they become mere instruments? Tools for typing emails, for gripping a steering wheel, for carrying groceries, for scrolling endlessly through the curated lives of others? The question hangs in the stale air, unspoken, yet screaming in the silence between the rhythmic clatter of the wheels on the track. You feel a sudden cold dread wash over you, a vertigo of the soul. You are moving at 100 kilometers an hour, yet you have never felt more stationary. This is the great paradox of our age. We live in a world of unprecedented velocity, a civilization defined by its frantic forward momentum. Our calendars are Tetris blocks of obligations. Our phones are relentless fountains of information, and our minds are taught to optimize, to hustle, to produce. We are more connected, more informed, and more productive than any generation in human history. So why? Why does it feel so empty? Why does this hyper-caffeinated, hyperlinked existence produce a loneliness so profound, an anxiety so pervasive that it has become the background radiation of our lives? We chase happiness like a horizon, a destination we are assured exists just beyond the next promotion, the next purchase, the next relationship. We build our lives like meticulous architects, following blueprints given to us by culture, by family, by advertising. Blueprints for a successful life. Get the education, find the career, buy the house, raise the family, post the pictures, repeat. We follow the steps with grim determination, ticking the boxes, convinced that meaning is a prize awarded at the end of the checklist. But what if the blueprints are wrong? What if the map you were handed at birth doesn't lead to a treasure, but simply to the edge of a cliff? What if the entire game is rigged? Not by some grand conspiracy, but by a far more subtle and insidious force, a collective forgetting. We have forgotten the most important thing. We have forgotten the question that all this activity was supposed to be an answer to. In our desperate scramble to find the answer, we have lost the one thing that gives the search its purpose. We are actors who have memorized our lines perfectly, but have completely forgotten the plot of the play. We perform our roles with technical brilliance, unaware that the audience left the theater long ago. So you sit there, in your vessel of motion, staring at the ghost of your own reflection in the window, and the real question begins to surface, pushing its way up from the deep, neglected parts of your being. It's not, am I happy? That question is a trap, a shallow distraction. The real question is far more unnerving. Is this life mine? Is this story the one I am living, chapter by agonizing chapter, one that I am actually writing? Or am I merely a character in a script written by someone or something else? The greatest tragedy is not that our lives are difficult. It is that for so many, they are not even our own. We have been taught to decorate our cages so beautifully with such sophisticated distractions and comfortable illusions that we have forgotten we are in a cage at all. The first step towards freedom, then, is not to search for an exit. It is to finally, truly see the bars, and that leads us to the most urgent question of all. Not how do we find our way, but rather, who or what designed this labyrinth in the first place?
To ask who designed the labyrinth is to presuppose a single architect, a malevolent intelligence plotting our confinement. But the truth is far more unsettling. The architect is not one, it is many. The labyrinth was not built in a day. Its walls are ancient, constructed from the rubble of fallen gods and cemented with the mortar of our deepest fears. To understand its design, we must become archaeologists of the soul, digging down through the layers of the modern mind to unearth the foundational cracks upon which our entire reality is built. The story begins over a century ago, with a philosopher who dared to look into the abyss and report back what he saw. When Friedrich Nietzsche declared that God is dead, he was not making a celebratory statement of atheism. He was delivering a diagnosis. He saw that the central pillar holding up the roof of Western meaning, morality, and purpose for 2 millennia had crumbled, and into the vacuum rushed not freedom, but a terrifying chaos. This was the Great Void, a meaning crisis so profound it would come to define the modern condition. Nature abhors a vacuum, but the human psyche abhors a meaning vacuum even more. We became a culture unmoored, adrift in a silent, indifferent cosmos, desperate for a new God, a new authority, a new map to tell us where to go. And so we began to outsource our souls. We began a frantic search for replacement saviors. This is the hidden problem, the great abdication. We abdicated the terrifying, glorious responsibility of creating our own meaning and handed it over to external systems. The Danish thinker Søren Kierkegaard saw this happening. He warned of the crowd, which he called the untruth. The crowd, be it a nation, a political party, or the abstract entity of public opinion, offers a pre-packaged identity, a set of beliefs that saves you from the agonizing labor of forming your own. It offers the comfort of belonging, the anesthesia of conformity, but the price of this comfort is your authentic self. To join the crowd is to dissolve into it, to trade your unique, subjective truth for a comfortable, borrowed lie. The labyrinth's first wall is built from this fear of standing alone, this terror of genuine freedom, and the responsibility it entails. But the architecture is also internal. The great psychoanalyst Carl Jung understood that the modern individual was at war with themselves. He spoke of the persona, the polished, socially acceptable mask we present to the world. It is the smiling face in the profile picture, the competent professional in the meeting, the well-adjusted member of society. But beneath this mask lies the shadow, the repository of all our repressed instincts, our forbidden desires, our insecurities, our untamed creative and destructive urges. Society, the crowd, encourages us to strengthen our persona and deny our shadow. We push it down, pretend it doesn't exist, but it doesn't go away. It festers in the basement of the psyche, projecting itself onto others, driving our compulsions and fueling our anxieties. We become hollow men, all polished surface with a raging, chaotic void within. The labyrinth, then, is not just around you, it is inside you. You are divided against yourself, and a house divided cannot stand. This bargain, trading freedom for comfort, selfhood for security, was articulated with terrifying clarity by Fyodor Dostoevsky in his parable of the Grand Inquisitor. The Inquisitor confronts a returned Christ, telling him that humanity does not want the freedom he offered. It is too great a burden. What they truly crave, he argues, is miracle, mystery, and authority. They want to be fed, to be dazzled, to have someone take away the terrible weight of choice. They will lay their freedom at our feet and say to us, "Make us our slaves, but feed us." Has there ever been a more prophetic description of our world? In the wake of the Great Void, we found new inquisitors to give us what we craved. The first was the gospel of consumer capitalism. It offered a new trinity: miracle in the form of technological wonders and endless novelty, mystery in the branding and seductive imagery that promises transformation through a product, and authority in the dictation of trends and the definition of the good life. It transformed citizens into consumers, and our temples became shopping malls. It promised to fill the void inside us with things, experiences, and statuses, preying on the Jungian shadow's sense of inadequacy and promising the persona a new, more dazzling mask to wear. And now a new and even more powerful inquisitor has risen: the algorithm. It is the ultimate fulfillment of the crowd's promise. It studies you, learns your desires, your fears, your secret shames, and it offers you a perfectly curated reality tunnel. It feeds you a constant stream of validation, distraction, and outrage, ensuring you are never alone with your own thoughts, never forced to confront the silence of the void. It gives you your daily bread of dopamine hits and outrage clicks. It has become the silent, invisible architect of your reality, reinforcing the walls of the labyrinth until you can no longer distinguish them from the horizon. This is the great abdication in its final, most perfect form. We have laid our freedom, our attention, and our very consciousness at the feet of a machine. And we have said, "Show me who to be, tell me what to want, save me from myself." But this transaction is not without its cost, a hidden tax on our humanity paid in installments of quiet despair and a slow, creeping sense of unreality. And the full, devastating consequences of living within these invisible walls are a price we are only now beginning to comprehend.
This great abdication of the self, this outsourcing of your soul to the crowd, the market, and the algorithm, it is not a benign transaction. It comes at a cost, a hidden tax on your humanity. And this tax is not paid in a single lump sum. It is extracted slowly, quietly, day by day, in the small unseen moments of your life. Its consequences are not loud and catastrophic like a collapsing building. They are silent and corrosive, like a slow-acting poison for which the primary symptom is the belief that you are perfectly fine. The first consequence is the fragmentation of your very being. You live in a state of perpetual cognitive dissonance. There is the you that exists on screens, the curated, smiling, productive persona, and then there is the you that lies awake at 3 a.m., staring into the darkness, feeling the chilling echo of the void. You are told to be authentic, but you are rewarded for conformity. You are told to find your passion, but you are given a career path that optimizes for profit. This constant, low-grade internal war is neurologically taxing. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for long-term planning, for self-control, for your most authentic and cherished goals, is in a constant battle with your limbic system, which is being relentlessly stimulated by the instant gratification, the social validation, and the fear-based notifications pumped out by the systems that command your attention. You are being neurologically rewired away from depth and toward distraction, away from conviction and toward compliance. Your attention span shortens, your ability for deep focus dissolves, and your life becomes a series of frantic surface-level reactions. With this comes the atrophy of your will. The will is like a muscle. It grows stronger with use and withers from neglect. Every time you let a streaming service decide what you should watch next, every time you let a news feed decide what you should be angry about today, every time you let the market decide what you should desire this season, you are performing one less repetition. You are letting that muscle weaken. Over time, the very capacity for self-directed, intentional action begins to fade. The thought of making a truly independent decision, one not validated by likes, by trends, or by social consensus, becomes terrifying. You become a passenger in your own life, a ghost in the machine. You mistake the movement of the vehicle for your own agency, unaware that you have forgotten how to steer or that you have long since given the keys to someone else. This leads to the defining emotional state of our time, what Thoreau called a century ago, a life of quiet desperation.
It's not a sharp, identifiable pain, but a chronic, low-grade hum of anxiety. It is the feeling of being perpetually overwhelmed and yet somehow profoundly bored. It's the exhaustion that no amount of sleep can cure. It's the Sunday night dread that is no longer confined to Sunday nights. This feeling is not a bug in the system, it is the system working perfectly. A society built on consumerism and algorithmic engagement requires you to be fundamentally dissatisfied. Your unease is its fuel. Your sense of lack is its lifeblood. It needs you to feel just empty enough to click, to buy, to scroll, to seek the next fleeting hit of validation that promises to fill the void but only ever widens it. On a societal level, the consequences are devastating. As we retreat deeper into our personalized, algorithmic labyrinths, we suffer a collective death of empathy. The systems are designed to show us more of what we already believe, to confirm our biases, and to present the other, those outside our tribe, as a caricature, a threat, a monster. Empathy is the ability to imagine the world from another's perspective, but the labyrinth walls are mirrors, not windows. They only show us reflections of ourselves. The result is the fractured, polarized, and perpetually enraged world we now inhabit. Kierkegaard's crowd has splintered into a million warring tribes, each convinced of its own righteousness, each speaking a language the others cannot understand, all shouting into an echo chamber that shouts back with furious agreement. This in turn creates a profound cultural stagnation. A culture that only rewards what is safe, what is predictable, and what is algorithmically optimized for engagement loses its soul. Genuine art, the kind that challenges, transforms, and reveals deeper truths, becomes a commercial risk. Instead, we are fed an endless diet of sequels, reboots, remixes, and nostalgia. A cultural feedback loop that mistakes noise for creativity and frantic motion for progress. We are digging through the graves of the past because we have lost the courage to imagine a future. We are being poisoned, slowly and methodically. The will, empathy, depth, and creativity, the very faculties that make us human, are being systematically dismantled. But what happens when the poison begins to fail? What happens when the quiet hum of desperation finally becomes a scream? What happens when the passenger, in a moment of terrifying clarity, decides they would rather crash the car than let someone else keep steering it into oblivion? It begins with a single act of rebellion, a radical shift in perception that threatens to shatter the very walls of the prison. It begins by learning how to see differently.
That scream rising in your throat, that moment of lucid rebellion where you see the bars of the cage for the first time, that is the beginning of everything. The escape from the labyrinth is not a battle fought with fists, but a revolution of consciousness. The walls are not made of stone and steel. They are made of assumptions, of borrowed desires, and of unexamined beliefs. You cannot punch your way through them. You must learn to see through them. The first act of this revolution is to understand a terrifying and liberating truth. The power of the labyrinth is derived entirely from your consent, and you can at any moment withdraw it. This begins with a radical shift in perspective, a Copernican revolution of the soul. For your entire life, you've been taught to operate from an external locus of control. You've been trained to believe that meaning, happiness, and identity are things that are found, achieved, or bestowed upon you from the outside. The right job, the right partner, the right number in your bank account. Breaking free requires you to detonate this assumption. It requires you to seize an internal locus of control. It is the realization that meaning is not something you find in the world. It is something you bring to the world. It is not a discovery, it is a creation. No one understood this better than Viktor Frankl. A psychiatrist imprisoned in the Nazi death camps, Frankl was stripped of everything: his possessions, his identity, his family, his dignity. He lived in a world where circumstances were absolute, a hell designed to extinguish the human spirit. And yet in that abyss, he discovered an indestructible freedom. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. The labyrinth can dictate your location, but it cannot dictate your orientation. It can inflict pain, but it cannot decide if that pain becomes suffering or if it becomes a crucible for strength. This power, the power to choose your response in the space between stimulus and reaction, is your sovereignty. It is the one territory the Inquisitors can never conquer. How do you begin to exercise this power? It starts with the reclamation of the most sacred and defiant word in human language: no. You must become a warrior of the sacred no. No to the endless, mindless scroll. No to the manufactured outrage that serves only to harvest your attention. No to the desire for a product that was planted in your mind by a marketing team. No to the social obligation that drains your soul. Each time you say no to an external demand that does not align with your inner truth, you are not depriving yourself, you are creating a clearing. You are hacking out a small, quiet space in the jungle of noise. And in that clearing, a genuine, internally generated yes can finally begin to grow. This is not mere refusal, it is an act of profound attentional rebellion. Next, you must learn to embrace what you have been taught to flee: your existential dread. That hum of anxiety, that angst that Kierkegaard called the dizziness of freedom, is not a pathology. It is a signal. It is your authentic self buried deep beneath the persona, screaming for air. It is the compass needle of your soul telling you that you are living out of alignment with your own truth. Our society offers a billion ways to numb this sacred pain: pills, entertainment, ideologies. The revolutionary act is to stop running. Turn and face the dizziness, lean into the discomfort. In that dread is the energy for transformation. It is the feeling of a prisoner rattling the bars of his cell, the first sign he remembers he is in fact a prisoner. From there you cultivate the mindset of the Stoics and Nietzsche, amor fati, the love of one's fate. This is not passive resignation. It is an active, fiery embrace of your reality, exactly as it is. The boring job, the difficult relationship, the chronic frustration, the past you cannot change. These are not obstacles to your life. They are your life. They are the ugly, gnarled, and beautiful blocks of marble you have been given. The consumerist labyrinth tells you that you need a different, better block of marble to be happy. Amor fati tells you to pick up the hammer and chisel and begin carving the one you have. As the Emperor Marcus Aurelius knew, facing plague and war, true power lies not in wishing for a different world, but in mastering your inner response to the world as it is. This culminates in the most powerful practice of all. You must create more than you consume. The labyrinth is designed to keep you in a state of passive reception. The escape route is active creation. Write one true sentence in a journal. Learn 3 chords on a guitar. Cook a meal with deliberate, focused attention. Transform a patch of dirt into a garden. Have one conversation that is not small talk, but a genuine exploration of ideas. Creation is the ultimate act of defiance against a system that wants you to be a mere spectator. It is the process of imposing your consciousness, your will, and your values onto the raw material of existence. It is how you stop being a character and start being the author. By wielding these tools, the defiant no, the embrace of your dread, the love of your fate, the act of creation, you begin to dismantle the labyrinth brick by invisible brick. You are not following a self-help guide, you are engaging in philosophical warfare to reclaim the territory of your own mind. But this process of demolition reveals something extraordinary. As the walls come down, you realize they were never just containing you, they were also hiding something from you. They were hiding the true nature of the self that lies within, and the final, most powerful realization it holds.
As you wield these tools of inner rebellion, as you practice the sacred no and learn to love your fate, the walls of the labyrinth you once thought were solid granite begin to tremble. They become translucent. You see the shadows of the puppeteers, the glow of the algorithms, the ghosts of the old gods whose absences haunted you. You continue your work, not with anger, but with a quiet, focused determination. And as the walls finally dissolve, you are left standing in the rubble, breathing free air for the first time. But what you see now is not what you expected. The demolition of your prison has revealed that the walls were not just containing you, they were also hiding from you the most profound secret of all. Your entire journey, your struggle against the labyrinth, was predicated on one fundamental assumption: that there was a precious, singular, authentic you trapped inside that needed to be liberated. The whole quest was to find and free this true self. But this is the final illusion. This is the labyrinth's master trick. The obsessive search for the isolated individual self is the final, most well-hidden wall of the prison. You were told to find yourself, but what if the self is not something to be found, but something to be seen through? This is the paradigm shift that changes everything. You are not a drop in the ocean, separate and alone. You are the entire ocean in a single drop. The great Western myth is that of the heroic individual, the separate ego struggling against the world. But the deepest wisdom of both ancient mystics and modern physics tells a different story. It is the story of interconnectedness. The Buddhists call the illusion of a separate self anatta. The Taoists speak of the Tao, the indivisible, flowing unity of all things. The physicist shows you a universe not of solid, separate particles, but of shimmering, interacting fields of energy. The ecologist shows you that a tree is not a tree, but a node in a vast subterranean network, a lung for the entire planet. You are not in the universe, you are the universe experiencing itself. Your consciousness is not a brief spark in an alien cosmos, it is a momentary, beautiful eddy in the river of cosmic consciousness itself. With this realization, the entire project of your life is turned on its head. The question that has haunted you, the question that drove you into the labyrinth in the first place, what is the meaning of my life, is revealed to be the wrong question. It is a question born of the illusion of separation. It is an egocentric, impoverished question. When you understand your true nature is not isolation, but connection, the question transforms. It ceases to be about self-actualization and becomes about self-transcendence. Meaning is not a treasure you dig up for your own private enrichment. Meaning is a current that flows between things. It is found in the space you create for another person's pain. It is forged in the active service to a cause larger than your own fleeting existence. It is felt in the love you pour into your community, your art, your family. It is the awe you feel when contemplating the stars, realizing you are made of the same stardust. Viktor Frankl, from the depths of hell, concluded that happiness cannot be pursued. It must ensue as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as the byproduct of one's surrender to a person other than oneself. The freedom you were so desperately seeking was not freedom from the world and its obligations. It was the freedom to finally connect with it fully, without the neurotic, needy, terrified ego constantly getting in the way. So now you stand again by the window of that train, but you are no longer the same person. The reflection in the glass is a ghost you no longer recognize, a mask you've shed. You look out and you do not see a meaningless blur of concrete. You see an intricate, impossibly complex dance of existence. You see the faces of the other passengers, and you no longer feel the loneliness of the crowd. You feel a silent, shared humanity. You see them as other waves in the same ocean, each unique, each temporary, each divine. You look down at your hands and they are no longer alien. They are the hands of the universe, gifted to you for a short time, ready to work, to build, to soothe, to create. The quiet desperation has vanished, replaced by a vast and profound quiet awe. This is the work we do here on this channel. Not just to ask the questions, but to live them, to explore the abandoned architectures of our own minds and our world, to dismantle the illusions one by one. If you are ready to stop being a passive spectator in your own life, If you feel that call to become an explorer of reality's hidden depths, then join us. Subscribe and let's continue this journey together, not as a speaker and a listener, but as fellow travelers, fellow creators of meaning in a world that is starving for it. The great question was never, what is the meaning of life? The final realization, the one that sets you completely and utterly free, is understanding that you are not here to find the answer. You are the answer.